The iPhone 14 Pro is out, which only means one thing. Should you upgrade from the iPhone 13 Pro? Now, if you don't know me, my name is KJOS, and we're going to talk about these two phones and see if you should actually upgrade. Now, Apple has made a lot of changes this year, and arguably the most we've seen quite in a while. Now, to make this video more authentic, I'm not going to talk about specs, I'm not going to talk about the redundant stuff. I want to talk about my experience using both these phones every single day and help you, the audience, make the best decision possible. Now, the iPhone 14 Pro has seen a dramatic change, especially when it comes to the display, with the new dynamic island, which is a revised notch, or you can say it's also the lack of a notch, if we're being honest. Now, it does not work in the most seamless manner all the time, but I love how intuitive it is. I also imagine the amount of potential this has. Now, here are a few examples of what you can do with it. When listening to music, you can adjust the controls of the music by pressing and holding it. You can also get into the current app in the background by tapping it. Now, I love how when you exit the app itself and you slide it back in, it goes in pretty smoothly. That's what she said. For calls and timers, you can access them here as well. With timers, you can see the countdown without having to go into the app. Now, a lot more apps need to be optimized for this because on SoundCloud, for example, the dynamic island didn't work at all. Now, if my calculations are somewhat correct, I'm looking at, say, first quarter of 2023 before a lot more apps are comfortable with this technology. Now, I don't really have anything bad to say about it. Maybe, well, it's kind of intrusive when watching videos, but then again, the notch was, and my eyes adjusted to that, so I expect this to go exactly the same way. Another new feature with the display is the always on display. Now, if you've had an Android phone, you've had this feature since probably the first Samsung Galaxy device, but it's finally here with the iPhone 14 Pro, and in Apple fashion, it works very differently than other Android devices. Now, when you lock your phone, it goes into a low powered state that's using very little energy, but you can still see almost everything going on in the display. Compare that to, say, the Pixel 6 Pro, for example, and it's vastly different. It is also using 1 Hz when locked, so it's not using a lot of energy according to Apple, and this one affects its battery life, but I will be the judge of that. Either way, I'm not sure if I really like it, if I'm being honest, but a plus side is that I can always see my album art when listening to music because I'm a big music person, so this is like a different artistic choice. Now, the same thing goes if you have a picture of yourself. It fades into the background without losing any quality or color at the same time. Now, the 13 Pro does not have this feature at all, and I don't think it's going to have this feature even with software updates, so that is something to think about. Now, it is just nice to have your notifications pop up from the bottom of the screen while the phone is still dim, as opposed to the whole phone lighting up like it's 4th of July. Now, in terms of how this affects the battery life though, I've only had the phone for a couple of days, so I will be testing this and I will let you guys know on my social media or in my full review. Now, in terms of the build quality, these two phones are very similar in every single way possible. The buttons are in the same position, it is the same stainless steel frame. The only difference here is that the 14 Pro is slightly wider, but if you pick it up, it is the same experience and the same feeling. Everything is just the same, it's literally the same phone. But a big difference you will see here, and I mean a very big difference, is with its cameras. Putting them side by side, the camera bump is bigger than the 13 Pro, and for good reason. The wide angle lens has an improved 48 megapixel camera that is 4 times the amount on the 13 Pro, whereas the telephoto lens and the ultra wide lens remain the same. Now, a huge advantage this has over the 13 Pro is with its larger sensor. Its 2x and 3x function allows for better zoomed in pictures without losing any quality. You also have an extra focal length with only 3 lenses. So is there a significant difference in picture quality and video quality between the 13 Pro and the 14 Pro? And the answer is yes, especially when it comes to zoomed in pictures. There is clearly more detail with the 14 Pro thanks to the new wider sensors. When it comes to the standard wide angle lenses though, the difference isn't so clear because the iPhone camera by default takes 12 megapixel images. Now, to use the 48 megapixel camera, you need to shoot in ProRAW. This allows you to capture the most amount of detail that allows for impressive crops using the full power of the main wide-angle lens. But trust me when I say this, you don't want to use ProRAW all the time because one picture ranges between 75 megabytes and 100 megabytes. Now, when it comes to low light images, Apple said it is 2 to 3 times better in low light thanks to their photonic engine AI. I mean, it's better, but I don't know if it's about 2 or 3 times. Cinematic mode shoots in 4K compared to the 1080p on the 13 Pro, and you can shoot in 24 frames per second in cinematic mode. There's now an action mode exclusive to the 14 Pro, and the 14 Pro Max because it also has a bigger sensor, it crops in more within this mode, and it shoots in 2.8K as opposed to 4K, which is honestly fine by me. It takes your video and crops it to enable less shakes, and in turn gives a more stabilized shot. You can run with it, get awesome footage, and I know it's not the perfect thing in the world, but it's definitely better than the standard mode. And if you have kids or pets, by the way, you can also use this to chase them around and have fun, really. And it's just a great camera to have, to be very honest. Will I use it very often? Not really, I don't think so. But like I said, it is a great feature to have when the time comes. This is the video quality on the iPhone 14 Pro, and I'm shooting in 4K at 30 frames per second. And I'm going to be showing you the differences between this and the iPhone 13 Pro. So let me know in the comments what you guys think. This is the video quality on the iPhone 13 Pro, and I am shooting in 4K at 30 frames per second. Which one do you guys prefer? Is there a difference between the 13 Pro and the 14 Pro? Comment below and let me know. Now let's talk about the performance of these phones because of that new Apple A16 Bionic chip. On paper, it's faster than the 13 Pro, but during my day-to-day movement and activities, there wasn't much of a difference. Now, in terms of opening everyday apps, it feels exactly the same. Now, the A16 shows its class and difference when exporting and editing on a day-to-day, and it would definitely run smoother than the A15. But then again, the difference will not be that much. But you also remember that these new chips brings forth these features within the iPhone 14 Pro, like the action camera mode and the cinematic mode in 4K. It might not give the biggest performance differences, but it enhances the experience of the iPhone 14 Pro. So if you're thinking about buying this and it's going to make your phone super fast like the Flash, then you're going about this all wrong. Now when it comes to the battery and how it performs, Apple says you get an extra battery life than the 13 Pro. Now the battery stats on the 14 Pro have been released, and it has a 3200 mAh of battery, which is an upgrade from the 3095 on the 13 Pro. The 13 Pro had awesome battery life when it came out, and it's too soon to give my verdict on the battery life between these two phones. But I will say the battery has lasted me most of my day, so it's pretty positive so far. So the most important question, should you upgrade from the iPhone 13 Pro to the iPhone 14 Pro? This all depends on what you value. Now, if you value a better battery life, a better camera, an always-on display, and that dynamic island, then yes, you should definitely upgrade to the iPhone 14 Pro. But if you don't value these things at all, you might want to skip the iPhone 14 Pro. But remember that this design isn't changing anytime soon for the next 4 to 5 years. So personally, I'm kind of curious to see what Apple are going to do with the next iPhones that are coming out in the next couple of years. Thank you guys for watching, and if you like this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel and like this video so it can get to a wider audience. My name is KJOS, and I will catch you guys in the next one where I talk all things tech.